Right, we can carry on then. I'll start from where I was originally. I think that's probably the best idea here. Okay. I'm talking about, this video is about, is it possible to lose control of your drinking? And I'm coming at this from the perspective of the AA, right? That powerlessness that the AA talks about. And I'm not talking about it from the perspective of that I'm attacking the AA or I'm trying to get under the skin of anyone that's ever gone to AA or who finds help from the AA. I always want to, everything that we talk about here is always going to be about ideas, about the ideas of powerlessness, for instance, or lack of control or loss of control. That as a basic idea. I have to look at it from two perspectives, and that's from the actual loss of control, which is what these ideas are pushing. I'll just show you this. This is I have to go with the AA because I have no other choice, right? So I want to look at this. This is the first part here. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable, right? So however much this second part, there is a certain amount of loss of control from this perspective, I think, when you're drinking a lot. But this powerlessness over alcohol is just an idea which I find completely abhorrent, right? And then he goes on to say that this part here with the power greater than yourself, and then you're restoring. It's the only way to restore you to sanity is just, for me, it's I don't like that idea at all from a personal perspective. For anyone to call me insane, so I'm out of control, I'm powerless, and I'm insane in the first two sentences, and that's the thing that always kept me drinking alcohol for a long time, and that's where I'm coming at. You don't see this with cigarettes. You don't see this with when people are. I've got problems with the weight. They're overweight. You don't see that they've lost control. Maybe the perceived loss of control. So we go back to the beginning and say there's two types of this. There is the actual loss of control, which is what they're saying, that you've actually lost control of something. And the perceived loss of control, where you think you've lost control, and that's where we differ, right? For me, it's the more you drink, the more I drank from a personal perspective, the more I was digging myself into this whole behavior-wise. And I'm not talking about it from an alcohol perspective, but just the behavior. And it happened that the behavior was sending me down an alleyway, which was, to all intents and purposes, causing me a lot of physical harm, a lot of psychological harm, and a lot of just harm in general in my life, right? So the more I dug into that hole, the deeper the hole got, the longer it was going to take for me to climb out. And it's, I'm 10 years into this now, almost 9.5 years, and I'm still digging out of some of the things, some of the ideas, some of the mindsets, the psychological stuff especially, that I built up over those years. I mean, I started drinking when I was 12, really started drinking when I was 18. And when I started drinking, it was, I started it as an idea of going down to the pub and spending time with my buddies, being with my friends. And then it went from one night a week to 2 nights, and then from 2 to 3, and then I'm bringing beer home and having the beer at home with my on my own a lot of the time. So my experience of trying to stop, or my experience of being a drinker in those earlier years, were with these ideas floating around of alcoholism, of alcoholic, of sober. It becomes easy to rationalize your own drinking. I mean, we're started out from the perspective that it's normal anyway, that drinking alcohol is normal. And you've got to come at it then from the perspective of that it helps you to not only to rationalize your own drinking, but to avoid even thinking about your drinking, because you're saying to yourself, well, I'm not an alcoholic. This is not me. I don't look at my life as having to be sober, and no matter how many times I went through the moderation loop, having to trying to moderate, getting to a stage where there's emotional pain enough that you then move back to cutting back on alcohol. I mean, in Habits V2 we always talk about this as being you're not moderating the alcohol, you're moderating the pain, because the pain gets to a certain level in your mind or whatever it is physically. It's mostly mental pain, or it's a life pain, and that pain gets to a certain point and you turn that pain around and you say to yourself, right, well, I've got to cut back on my alcohol because it's causing me problems. So it's not the alcohol that you ever need to reduce or moderate. It's always the pain. And it felt to me like it was that it was a weakness, that if I decided to stop drinking alcohol, that was admitting a defeat. It was a weakness on my part. And society pushes that idea on you, that when you stop drinking alcohol, that all you're good for is sitting in a room with a lot of other people, telling other people your problems, right? And going through this notion that you're always going to have a problem. You've always got this disease now that you've got for the rest of your life. So it takes you from here as a perception level down to here automatically. And it's bullshit, because quitting drinking alcohol is stopping doing something which is harming you. And I don't care what you say about, whether it's you're drinking a lot or you're moderating, it's a poison that you're putting into your body. And each part of that poison affects your brain, and that is going to have a domino effect on everything else that you do in your life. And the more you drink, the more of an effect it's going to have. So you're weakening yourself by this. So stopping drinking alcohol is a strength on so many levels. And like I said, people just don't realize that, because they've been so brainwashed by society into believing that they're normal drinkers. So I think you have to look at this control as being on a continuum. So, at one end of this continuum down here, you've got people who've got absolutely no control. And on the other end of the continuum, you've got people who have got control of everything. And, there is nobody at either end of that continuum, right? There's nobody that's got total control, and there's nobody that has just actually lost control, unless you're dead. Right, so in between those two places of total control and no control, wherever we are, we're in the middle somewhere always. There is decisions that you've got to make, and there's trade-offs, and that's life. It's where you put your focus. So if you choose to have a drink, and if you choose to be a drinker, then you've got to trade off that with everything else. You've got to trade off the money, you've got to trade off the time that it takes, and you've got to trade off the health that you're pushing in that direction, right? So it's all about that. And I think the more you drink, the more it becomes to exercise your control. I think that's probably a true statement, that the more you get into the habit of drinking, it's like any of these habits, the nature of the habit creates a situation where it's easier for you to follow the habit and to do the habit and to carry on regardless of the negative consequences. But it's still a trade-off, and it's a part of life in general, So, like I said, the deeper you go into this hole in the ground that you're digging for yourself, regardless of whether it's alcohol, whether it's gambling, whether it's, going out and thinking the same level. If you're habitually going out and seeking quick sexual encounters, for instance, or there's with food, you can dig yourself into a hole with food as well, with not exercising, with so many areas of your life you can dig yourself down into a hole, and the further you dig down, the harder it is for you to drag yourself out. If you weigh twice as much as you should weigh, then you have a lot further to go than somebody who only has a couple of pounds onto them. And that's the same thing. It's the same principle. So, but the more you feel in control, the more you perceive that you have control. There's a thing called the locus of control, whereas if you've got an internal locus of control, you believe that you're in control. And the more in control you believe you are, and it all comes down to perceptions, the more in control you are actually going to be in life. And on the opposite end of that is the external locus of control. And it's where you believe that something outside of yourself or someone outside of yourself controls you, controls your thoughts, controls your life. And that's where this idea of being controlled by alcohol comes from. You have to literally every time pick up the glass, pick up the bottle, and you have to lift it up to your mouth and swallow it. And you have to do that over and over and over and over and over and over again in order for it to become a habit. In order for you to have any problem whatsoever with alcohol, you've got to do it. You've got to put it into your mouth. So the control lies with you. And therefore the not controlling it, the not putting it into your mouth, that lies with you as well. So those ideas, what they do is they set up this internal conflict with yourself, that you're incapable of doing this. One of the things that I found when I stopped drinking alcohol was that relief that finally, after all these years, that I didn't have to worry about it anymore. It's like a huge weight lifting off my shoulders. Like I said, I tried to stop drinking on many occasions, but it was always couched in the framework of moderation. I'll moderate. I'll cut back on my drinking. And the idea when you decide to moderate is always going to be from the perspective of I'm going to moderate from now on. But your idea of drinking is always I drink with a certain purpose in mind, and it's to get to a certain level of a buzz or whatever it is. But your idea of drinking alcohol is up here, and you're moderating and you're never getting up to that level. So when you don't get up to that level, when you take the first drink, it's easier to drink the second one. When you take the second one, it's a lot easier to drink the third one. Do you know what I mean? So you might moderate and be good at moderating for a few weeks, but then eventually you get bored of it and you think, well, what am I doing this for? I'm not getting what I want out of it. So that was my experience over and over. So it's the battle you're going to fight for the rest of your life. So you have to ask yourself that, when you're telling yourself you've lost control of drinking, well, who else is in control of this? If you go to a psychiatrist, let's say you pay top dollar and you go to a rehabilitation clinic and you pay 30 grand for a month, and you're in a place where there is no alcohol, where you're not a prisoner, but you're going to be there for 30 days, and you've got the medical staff there to help you, you've got food there to help you, you've got a clean room, you've got all this thing is laid on for you, and you believe in your mind that you're giving the control over to somebody else, which to a certain degree you are. But after that month, you've got to come back out into the real world where you're now expected to control yourself. And whatever information, whatever happens to you within that, whatever after service you get, you are the one that has to control yourself. So whether you succeed or not, you're the one that has to control yourself. If you go to AA, you're the one that has to control yourself from day one. From that first day that you stop drinking alcohol, you're the one that has to not put the alcohol into your mouth. So there is no powerlessness. You are the only one with the power to do this. Do you understand? And that's where the the conflict lies with me. You know, you're the one with the levers, you're operating everything. You're the one that has got the brain to do this. You're the one that has, like I said, it's your arm, it's your mouth, it's your swallowing mechanisms, it's your conscious control. And alcohol is easy to get. You know, even when somebody is at the worst, you know, when somebody is at the worst of the worst, somebody, let's say somebody has lost their house and they're living on the street and they're drinking all the time. That's for me is a, you know, somebody who's at rock bottom. Think about the hoops that these people will go through to get the money to go out and buy the alcohol. Or whatever it is, you know, it could be some other drug. Think about the hoops that they have to go through. So the idea of no control just does not compute, you know, it doesn't make any sense to me. You know, we're great at rationalizing these things. We're great at rationalizing away from the things that we're supposed to do in order to continue to do the things that are easy for us to do. The things that don't lead us down that road of discomfort. Do you know what I mean? So, if anyone's got any questions, let me know. If you want to ask questions, then you have to click the join button down below the video, and you'll get all the details there of what to do. We're going to be doing these once. I think next week we're going to be doing one on a Monday, but we're going to do them once a week for the foreseeable future anyway, until we see where we are. I'm just checking on whether or not seeing the quality. We're trying to get somebody in to have a look at the internet down this end of the house. So until then, it is what it is. But like I say, you know, going back to what we're teaching, I always teach things. I always teach people that, you know, your self-control, you have to look at it. You have to start out with this journey saying that self-control is a given. You know, it's difficult. The more you get into it, the further you get away from alcohol, the more self-control you seem to have. But it's more that you have the tools at your disposal to control yourself more. So it's more of a skills deficit than a control deficit or a power deficit, because, like I said, it's always in your control. It's always within your power to do these things. You know, we're always talking about trying to build the skills that you need, which, you know, at the end of the day, they're very limited skills that you need. It's you know, we're talking about coping mechanisms in the first few weeks. Anyone who's gone through this knows that after 30 days, a lot of the day-to-day cravings, I don't even like the word cravings, is another powerless word that takes away the power from you. Those feelings that you get, those ideas that you want to go back to your habit, after 30 days, a lot of those have disappeared. You know, and then it's basically building some systems into your old life, into your new life, trying to utilize the new skills that you're learning new skills, habitualizing those new skills, and trying to put yourself into the shoes of somebody who doesn't drink and who thinks like a non-drinker. That's the part that takes a long time, because, you know, it's a part of growth, right? But it's a growth that you have to work on. You know, it doesn't just happen to you. You know, you've got to work on it in the right way, because if you don't, then you're not going to grow. You know, you're going to be stuck in that box of always thinking about going back and what you're missing out on. You know, I should be doing this, or I should be doing that, or look at what they're doing and I can't do that anymore. And I think that's a part of the step-by-step process that you need to learn. I mean, I think it's all about learning. It's all about processes and learning and then applying what you learn. So, you know, we don't. If somebody comes to us and says that they they're not willing to, if they don't think like that they've got the self-control, that they're not willing to push themselves towards that internal locus of control, then there's nothing I can do for anyone. I mean, we don't even accept people that are in that frame of mind. So, you know, there's a lot of people that come who think about quitting drinking alcohol, who maybe have to get some medical issues sorted out first, but they're in the minority, most certainly. So, you know, there's excuses all over the place. There is the individual excuse that we all use, and then there is the societal excuse. I mean, society itself. You know, you begin to see this when you've stopped drinking alcohol for a long time. You start seeing other people who are so-called normal drinkers, and how they actually drink, and how they look at their alcohol, and how they act when they don't get the fix. You know, it's funny to see. It's not funny actually. It's quite sad, but you know, time is ticking away. You know, it's one of the things that I've learned. I mean, I can't believe it's 10 years since I stopped drinking. It's just unbelievable. But I've done so much in the last 10 years. You know, it's just. But time is ticking. Time is the most precious commodity that you have in this, because you're never going to get it back. You know, it's one of those things that. I'm doing some videos for young fathers at the moment, and that's where my aim has always really been to try and get young fathers especially, but mothers as well, young parents, to get alcohol out of their houses, to make it, you know, to create an environment where the children are growing up where they're not drinking alcohol, because you know it's all down to you. What they see in the early years is down to the parent, and yeah, we're if there's one thing that I could have done, you know, there's any period of my life I would go back to and change. If I could choose one period, one time, it would be the moment my son was born. That I could go back to that time and stop drinking right then, if not before, you know. And to stop smoking, you know, and just to have that mentality going forwards, to have the mentality that I have now going back, you know. But you know, there's no way of doing that. So what's the point? But you know, like I said, clock is ticking. Clock is ticking. You know, it's just you know, if you're not going to do it now, when are you going to do it? You know, if you convince yourself you're out of control, then you know what else is there? You know. You have the power to do this, or you don't have the power to do it. But whatever it is, it's all in your perception. You're telling yourself this stuff because the reality is that you have the power. Whether or not you use that power, whether or not you make the problem go away, you know, you're the one that has to do it. So, all right, I'm gonna stop it from here today. Like I said, we're going to be doing one of these probably every Monday, more than likely around this same time. So if you want to join, then you're quite welcome along. These videos will be published separately, so we'll trim them down and then publish it again so you can see it. All right, take care of yourself, and I will speak to you again soon. All right, onwards and upwards. Bye now.